Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you today about Vedic astrology. I'm a little fuzzier than normal on the screen, and that's because the light behind me is a little bit more high contrast than normal. I'm using natural light. I'm going to be fiddling around with the light from time to time to make it a little better. I apologize for any technical deficiencies in this video. Um, I'm actually broadcasting from a different location right now, which is why I'm having some trouble adjusting to the lights. As time goes on, these are going to be much sharper, much better resolution. Um, okay, so I'm here to talk not about technical issues, but about Vedic astrology, and also what it means to you as an individual in terms of your chart and also what it means in terms of the larger world. It's interesting because, and just give you a brief background on myself, I'm an astrologer of 32 years experience. I've written on Vedic astrology. Um, I've had, I've held high positions in various organizations dedicated to Vedic astrology. Blah 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 blah. So that's not to put it down, but you can read my biographical information elsewhere. And I do these broadcasts every week. Uh, these past couple of weeks have been a little challenging because I've been involved in a lot of physical labor trying to get some stuff done uh, around my house and my store. So, like I said, that's background that you didn't need, but I just wanted to explain why things were a little bit discombobulated over the past couple of weeks. Hopefully, within about a week, I'll get back into regular schedule. Okay, on with the show. First of all, please um, subscribe. It helps me as I try to go towards monetized status, which I'd like to do. That's entirely up to you guys. Likes, if you can like the video, if you truly like it. And if you can share the video so we can raise the subscriber base, that'd be fantastic. And and like I said, I do plan to make some technical improvements over the next few months, so it should be a lot better than this. All right. So all right. So let's go on to a lot of interesting activity in the sky recently, and I'm going to share the screen with you and show you that. Hopefully, we can do this interruption free. I can't guarantee that. Okay, so I'm going to share this screen again. Stop the share. I normally do this with Zoom, not because I dislike Zoom, but because the share button doesn't always work that well. All right, so hopefully, I'm going to try it. The rule of three. Um, for those of you who've never taken um, a Vedic astrology course, that will be weird. But all right, all right. So three strikes. All right. So with the rising sign, I'm doing this earlier than I normally do. I normally do it around 10 o'clock. So I normally have a Scorpio rising in the chart. But just brief background on Vedic astrology. Um, this is this system is a really old system, and for whatever set of reasons, um, Western astrology continues to follow what's called a tropical, or what I like to call a seasonal zodiac, which assumes that Aries always starts in at the beginning of spring with the vernal equinox or the spring equinox. Indian astrology looked at that and said, "Well, the sky's a little bit um, the stars aren't quite in the same place." They started noticing this, according to some accounts, way back when, because some of the old textbooks have references to fixed stars um, or they have reference points which indicate that signs start in earlier places than they do now, or that signs start in earlier places than they do now. And we also have what's called the age of Aries, the age of Pisces. We're in the age of Pisces right now, and the age of Aquarius. And so they adjusted, or they always adjusted the zodiac, depends on who you talk to. They always adjusted the zodiac to back uh, to a reference point in the sky, which would align it with the fixed stars. So if you looked out in the sky right now and you were to look in, and let's say look for Mars in Mars is a bad example. Look for Saturn in Aquarius, where it is in Western astrology right now. You'd be a little bit um, disappointed because Saturn wouldn't be there. Saturn, in fact, will be against a backdrop of stars known as Capricorn. So Indian astrology makes that adjustment. So all the signs are roughly 23 to 24 degrees off. So everything gets pushed back in a Vedic chart to around 20, depending on when you were born, 23 to 24 degrees earlier. The other thing is Vedic astrology also has um, it places a lot of emphasis on Rahu and Ketu, as the north and south lunar node. We're between eclipses right now. We had an eclipse on October 25th, I believe, and also one is coming on November 8th, right on election day in the United States, which should be really, really interesting. Um, so, and we'll talk about that just a little bit. It's Halloween, by the way, right now where I am, so trick or treat, everyone. And happy Samhain to anybody who follows that particular tradition. I'm actually English, English, Irish, Welsh on one side of my family, so uh, I guess I am Celtic to at least half Celtic. According to some sources, most of Europe was Celtic. I don't know if that's entirely true. Um, and I'm Portuguese, and the Portuguese allegedly came from both the Romans and the Visigoths. So I don't, and the Moors were there for a while. So I've never bothered to look up my family tree. I'm not really interested in stuff like that. And let's see now. So let's go back to this. So I so I was just saying that because I have a certain liking for Halloween. Um, and it's a new year. Basically, it's the start of a new year in certain traditions. So let's go, and we just went through a Jewish New Year just about a month ago. Okay, so a lot going on. This marks a change in seasons right now. So the sun is in Libra right now. In Indian astrology, it'll be there for about another 15 days. This is really small to see on your screen, but this is Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and back to Pisces. And one of the more interesting things about this chart is, um, although I don't use conventional squares, Mars is really dominant in this chart. Mars, Moon, and Saturn, if you look down this little right-hand corner, are really the dominant planets in this chart. And Mars is dominant because it just turned retrograde. It just started moving backwards. Our relative position to Mars is moving backwards in the sky. I don't think it's any accident that we saw the attack on Paul Pelosi, like just as Mars was stationing or seeming to go directly in the sky. I don't think it's any accident that we saw those unfortunate deaths in both India and South Korea over the weekend because that um, Mars as a planet uh, in astrology, we tend to put a lot of focus, uh, uh, an incredible amount of focus on Saturn as being a really difficult planet. Mars, from my experience, tends to be more difficult, and here's a simple reason why. It acts quickly. It's the fastest moving planet. Uh, there was um, there were certain rituals over the past week or so that were conducted to propitiate Mars in India. Certain traditions, if you want to increase courage or increase strength, this is the time I'm having my cat invade. One of my cats invade. This is a specific time. Uh, say hello to a Flash and goodbye to Flash. Okay, so I'll keep Flash occupied. And so so my fastest cat actually comes up when I'm talking about Mars, which makes a lot of sense. But Mars tends to be really, really, really uh, a very difficult planet because actions happen that you can't see coming. They're really it's a really quickly acting planet. In Vedic astrology, for certain reasons, in the old classical books like Brihaparasha or Shastra, is considered the most malefic planet. So whenever you're looking at like accidents or attacks or things like that, you look for Mars. And Mars is in Gemini, is going to be heavily communicated right now. It's going to go back to Taurus. It'll prolong the war in the Ukraine for another 3 to 4 months, I think. I'm still expecting that actually to resolve early next year. I hope I'm right, and I hope it resolves in a non-nuclear way. Um, I think the threat of that is stronger than the actuality of that. Uh, we have a Mars aspect on Saturn right now, which will make everybody a little bit edgy and jumpy. Over the past weekend, Mars was aspecting the moon, is still aspecting the moon. So everybody's going to be a little bit overly stressed lately. Just overly perfectionistic. They're going to be like really, really intense about the work they do. They're going to be really, really intense about getting everything exactly right. So I think um, just be conscious of that, but there'll also be delays in terms of getting things exactly right. Things will people will find problems, flaws, etc. And there'll be a lot of do-over work. That's what a lot of retrogrades mean. So Saturn's still retrograde, Jupiter's still retrograde. We have to relearn things over and over again. We have to start over and over again because we do things too quickly because of Mars being where it is. I'm going to refresh the share option again. Stop the share and start up again. And I think that's an important um, thing to remember is if you're having to do things over and over again, it's not necessarily because you're a dumb person. It's these sort of like compulsive elements in your chart. And I think one of the things it is helpful to look at is to remember that aphorism about the definition of an insanity is doing the same thing the same way and expecting different results. Um, the retrogrades in astrology tend to teach us that. So we'll tend to keep on repeating this behavior. And a lot of us just don't learn from it until at least the third time with Mars. Sometimes it's the ninth time with Saturn. Sometimes it's the eighth time we've done it. So Jupiter retrograde is generally more benefic because you repeat it fewer times. You learn, but you still tend to um, make similar mistakes. So it so that tendency to be overly generous with Jupiter retrograde, overly aggressive with Mars overly pessimistic with Saturn or overly critical. All those factors tend to cause problems for people. Mars is a planet that acts quickly. If Mars is as a planet that acts quickly, quick decisions are made, then um, and sudden decisions are made, which have really, really difficult consequences. So again, be careful. Also, we have a relatively rare phenomenon, not super rare, but rare, in the Rahu and Ketu. If you use the true node in astrology, which is essentially it's an adjustment that was made in the 20th century to astrology. It's not traditional in Indian astrology by any stretch of the imagination, but I like it because it actually explains certain major events. Is that Rahu and Ketu are direct. Um, this was actually a calculation made in order to make eclipses a little bit more um, precise, but 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 basically, when Rahu and Ketu are direct, usually big events occur. So uh, a lot of folks wouldn't call, you know, I call the catastrophes that happen in India, the bridge collapse, and that's a Mars Saturn aspect, to be a big deal. It's not as big a deal as a war starting or as big a deal as an economy collapsing. We don't have those planetary configurations really at earliest until April of next year. And I still think we're going to avoid that for about another 12, 13 years. Um, so, will there be significant wars in which people lose their lives? Yes, but I don't think we're heading towards a massive war for quite a while. Um, the other thing is, so so we'll talk about. So this just gives you a general outline of what to expect this week. The Mars retrograde will have you like undoing construction projects and redoing them, uh, saying things and taking them back. Um, Maybe even if you're violently inclined, hitting people and then regretting it. It's kind of a time for accidents happening where we can essentially rework or refit construction projects. Um, is These are do-over periods. They do allow us a certain amount of free will. It's good to be mindful when Mars is retrograde of the consequences of quick actions. So I wouldn't admire I wouldn't stop in my tracks, but until around mid-January when Saturn enters Aquarius and Mars goes direct again, I wouldn't take any fast actions or impulsive actions. I'm not a big fan of impulsive actions anyway, unless you have a really clear understanding of what's going on. For intuition is extremely strong right now because we have Venus in Libra, especially about business, and there's a cluster of planets in Libra. So this entire next 15 days to the end of the month is going to be about interpersonal relations and business. So you're going to see stock markets fluctuating like crazy. You're going to see interpersonal relationships fluctuating like crazy. Um, and signs like Gemini, Libra, Aquarius are going to feel a lot of impact in terms of their luck, their personal happiness, and their overall success. It's a good opportunity time for them because unexpected opportunities come in when K2 is active. But I think one of the things to keep in mind is that it also makes relationships a little bit strange or a little bit untempered. Confidence is down. So Sun in Libra tends to knock confidence down a bit. It's really um, an extraordinarily interesting time to have an election because Rahu in Aries makes us discontented with our leadership. This is worldwide. This is not just um, in the United States. This is worldwide. So you saw what happened with the Prime Minister of England. The shortest prime ministership in history, 6 weeks, and you'll also see a lot of turnover in world leaders. Um, it's possible that over the next few months you'll see people like I was just trying to think of the countries. A lot of European countries having scandals over, even over into Ukraine, Russia, having scandals over leadership, having scandals over even China for that matter, because China's in a really delicate position right now. And Japan tends to be a Libra country, from what I recall from my astrology. So I think a lot of you're going to see a lot of changes over the next few months, especially after these eclipses, all the way into next April, into around April, all the way through April, all the way through the end of 2023. But it'll start here. So essentially, um, Liz Truss was the canary in the coal mine. So you're going to see a lot of changes happening over the next year and a half. The other thing is with that Saturn moon, people will feel to be anxious to hold on to what they have, more conservative. That's right now. That's only a 2-day event. Okay, so don't stress out. But we're using this as a chart for the week. So let's look at the individual signs. Um, Jupiter in Pisces is this feeling of like infinite possibilities coming up. Neptune's going to go into the same sign uh, pretty quickly. I don't use the hour plans, but Neptune in this case is going to be particularly prominent, and I think you're going to see a big drug problem in the United States and around the world in uh, before the end of the year, like just huge. Um, and let's see now. All right, so let's go to the actual charts for you um, individuals, and then we'll go to the map and see where events are happening around the world. So uh, we have. Let's start off with Aries. Okay, so this is Aries. That's Pisces, Aries, Taurus. Just remember that in this map. Um, and and basically Rahu sits in the first house with a thing called the Sri Lagna. Now, the Sri Lagna, I don't talk about that much. I've mentioned it in certain videos. Sri Lagna is connected with prosperity. So it's a substitute rising sign um, for prosperity. And so we're dissatisfied with how our leaders are bringing us into prosperity. Um, there's with Mars as a ruler, there's a desire to go back or reconsider who our leaders are. So this is true not only in the United States, and this is in particularly true for Aries individuals, people born between April 15th and May 15th. And they're going to have a lot of ambitions, a lot of desires, a lot of old desires are going to come back. And they also have Venus in the seventh house. With Venus Sun conjunction, they'll be attracted to it. Attractive individuals, but also feel like they don't need relationships all that much right now. Communications are going to be spoiled a little bit because Mercury's moving into that sign as well. This is what's called a Saraswati yoga, by the way, or a sort of a variation on it, not quite. And when you have Mercury and Venus in this sign, there tends to be a lot of attention on the arts, on creative activities, and also on strange events or disruptive events. So you're going to see a lot of disruption in trade over the next few months. You know, this is not really a surprise to many of you. Oil regardless of how you feel about oil or gasoline or fossil fuel, they're an important part of our economy right now, and there'll definitely be disruptions and ineffectiveness on the part of leadership in oil. After November 15th, that effectiveness in leadership will actually start to show through. But I think for this month, it's not good for incumbents anywhere because the government is seen to be weak. Um, Saturn also aspects that sign, so that makes um, that particular rising sign a little bit more focused on work than on relationships or on partnerships. Jupiter's in the 12th house. Aries will continue to spend a lot of money. Aries hasn't changed a lot over the past few months. The only thing is there's more activity in the seventh house in this chart, and there's more ambition in this chart than we've seen in a while. And that's saying a lot because this particular sign is very ambitious. Taurus has Mars in the second house, so people with Taurus, uh, Sun, Moon, rising signs will tend to be more aggressive, tend to be more expressive. They'll have stronger opinions about things. Spend more money, more focus on money, and uh, also the Moon rules the third house of desires. They're kind of they're kind of satisfied with what they have. They're okay with what they have. They certainly have ambition, but they have ambition for security. They can have some health problems this month, so they should watch out um, for problems with vitality, communications, skin, um, and um, also financial growth. And seventh house Lord, some drawing back from relationships. This is kind of indicative of where all the planets are right now. But unusual relationships, unusual the beginnings of unusual relationships. And by that, I don't necessarily mean romantic relationships, although that's certainly covered, but also business relationships. For the rest of it, difficult bosses, aggressive bosses, but good financial gains, but also a lot of spending. For Gemini, Gemini has Mars in the first house, so this sign will feel like it's got to do things really fast. It's got to cover um, a lot of territory really, really quickly. But it'll feel a little bit blocked, and it'll feel like it needs to do things over and over again. That's the Mars Saturn aspect. And also, there'll be a little bit of dissatisfaction with relationship partners. Now, that's something to, so that they'll enjoy a lot of attention from a lot of different people, um, because of all these planets in the fifth house. They'll get a lot of romantic overtures. They'll be tempted, but they probably won't take it. Um, and the fourth house, there'll be a lot of attention on children, obviously. And um, the fourth house and fifth house are together. So a lot of attention on children and family. Some health problems to father, maybe, or authority figures in their life. Relationship life still looks good. They'll still be committed to relationship partner, but they'll be critical, and relationship partners will be critical of them. So that's just something which will only last for a couple of days, but it'll be kind of in the air for a while. 10th house career wise, Gemini's doing pretty well. They're in around mid-November when Jupiter goes direct. Career life will start to really jettison forward. It'll start to really move forward depending on the major planetary period you're in. And they'll have famous friends, or they'll be making contacts with a lot of friends. Cancer has Saturn and Moon in the seventh house, so there's a devotion or a dedication to relationship partners with this combination. This is not a bad combination at all. Just checking something here. Let me make sure. recording. And I am. Okay, good. All right. And yes, you can tell I have attention deficit disorder. So uh, no, not really. I just tend to um recent memory has always been a problem for me since I was around 20, 21 years old. Long-term memories, great. Um, and so so we'll go back to cancer. There's a lot of loyalty in relationship, but also some abusiveness in relationships, unfortunately. That'll go away within a couple of days, I think. So not to worry that much about it, but relationship partners will seem a little bit difficult to deal with, a little bit cranky, um, maybe even aggressive. Uh, but I'm not really seeing anything like chronic abuse. It's more arguments and more keeping secrets. Um, the other thing to look at for Cancer is you have this cluster of planets in the fourth house, which has to do with family and security. So there'll be a lot of concerns about family problems. There'll be concerns about brothers, sisters, and also about relationship life and personal happiness and home life. Saturn and Moon, like I said, it's a dedication. This is a firm contract the person views themselves as having entered into. That might change in January, in mid-January, but again, these are things which are connected to individual charts. So just because you have a difficult period in an individual chart, we also have free will. We also have the other planetary combinations. So when I'm saying things like unhappy with relationships, that's all relative to your chart. And it could mean the relationship partner is having some problems right now too, or the partner is a little bit depressed or unhappy with themselves. So sixth house Jupiter, Lord is in the ninth house, so that's good for financial luck for the sign. And Rahu's in the 10th house, good for fame. Um, for Leo, Leo has no planets in the seventh house, excuse me, and Jupiter's in the eighth house, and Saturn's in the sixth. So we should see some fame for hard work going to this sign. Uh, we also should see some strong desires coming up for this sign. So a lot of contacts, a lot of communications, a lot of writing opportunities. Uh, Jupiter in the eighth is actually pretty good because this makes the sign look very attractive. Uh, Others out there seem very knowledgeable. Rahu's in the ninth. It'll give it good opportunities for fame. Mars is in the 11th, so you'll have famous or well-known friends and, excuse me, and spectacular luck with those individuals. Um, and friendships will come in rapidly. Um, the other thing to keep in mind is if the Saturn moon is down here, it's a good combination for competitiveness. So and defeat of enemies. So that's good. Excuse me. Um, Virgo is has a lot of planets in the second house, so unexpected expenses and unexpected gains. So this is a sign. This is a time for this sign to consider investments, going for um, trying for new things. Um, but the current environment, I wouldn't suggest like highly speculative investments. Um, but if any sign has a chance of pulling this off, it's this one. Also, it'll be really interested in advancing his career life, and it'll see like a glimpse of that over the past couple of weeks, and then there'll be a pullback in order to learn more for a real career advancement in January. But for this particular sign, planets in the second house, it's a good cluster in the second house. Uh, Venus and Mercury and Sun are actually a good combination for some fame, some degree of fame or recognition. And Jupiter rules the fourth house. It's located in the seventh. So relationship opportunities, even encountering relationship patterns from the past is quite possible. But new relationship opportunities will come in around those of you who aren't married, and new business partnerships will come in around mid-November. Saturn aspects that sign, they'll be slow developing until January. January, a lot of the clamps are taken off. So between January and April for the sign, it's a good time to engage in new business partnerships and relationships. For okay, so I think I've said all I can say about Rahu's in the eighth is an obsession with research, with wealth, security, stability. For um, Libra rising, Libra's had kind of an uncertain period. A lot of Librans get unnoticed when K2 is passing through the sign, or they get unwanted attention. And Rahu's in the seventh house, so that will mean relationship partners are difficult to satisfy or make happy. But also with this Venus in the first house, it makes the sign very logical. That's one of the things that people don't understand about Venus and Libra. It gives a high degree of control over math, which includes astrology. Mercury's there with it, which gives it a connection to higher knowledge. The sun is there with it, which gives it a connection with spirituality and also financial gain. So even though the sun is debilitated, this is actually a favorable combination for Libra rising. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get unexpected shocks or unexpected negative reactions during this transit, because Saturn's also aspecting the sign, but that creates a Raj Yoga for Libra rising. So essentially, it's a good transit for those who are working, who are willing to, number one, work hard, and number two, willing to give up things in order to get what they want. So I think one of the things that this particular combination actually does is it increases spirituality, it increases hard work, it increases ability to overcome obstacles and self-improvement. Makes one dissatisfied with relationships or a little bit skeptical about relationships, like with business and personal. And actually, Mars in the ninth house is what's called a Adani Yoga for this chart. It actually creates financial opportunities. So this is actually a fairly good week for this sign. Um, but again, there will be fights with partners. There will be disagreements. Um, that'll continue really until through the middle of the week, pretty much. Okay. Um, but towards the end of the week, it'll improve a lot. For Scorpio has Saturn and Moon in the third house, um, and that makes the sign more very disciplined. Jupiter's in the fifth; it gives it good financial luck. And Rahu's in the sixth; it has to watch out for illnesses and expenses because you have this cluster of planets in the 12th house. Although this can't mean a lot of sexual opportunities for this sign, but I'd be really careful about who I got together with because they may be crazy or a little bit unstable. Uh, and uh, and Mars is in the eighth house, so there could be some financial gains for the sign this week. For Sagittarius, we have, we have um, Jupiter's in the fourth house, and so that's a Hamsa Yoga. That's good for financial gain. Mars is in the seventh, so a lot of fighting, a lot of partnership fighting over the past few months. I apologize for that. I'm not causing it, but I'm just drawing your attention to it. And this sign will be very, very perfectionistic about its home, about its status, about its money. Be very, very careful. Rahu's in the fifth, so children will have difficulties or be unhappy or be a little bit um, starstruck, difficult to please. Uh, the 11th house is actually pretty good in this chart. Um, so Venus, so all those planets in the 11th house indicates financial gains, either through government or through work or through friends. So that's actually not bad. So that's the one shining part in the United States chart right now. So for those of you who are Sag risings, you share the same rising sign with the U.S. For those of you who have uh, moons in Aquarius, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, you share a moon sign with the United States. So, excuse me. So let's go to Capricorn, and we'll wrap this up pretty quickly because I'm running out of time. Capricorn has uh, a good combination. It's a combination for leadership. So Capricorns are more conservative candidates. It's not really, I don't know, that's really a kind of a misnomer because a lot of people who have strong Capricorns really aren't conservative, but they're kind of control freaks. Um, so it's good for those people. For leadership, the moon is in this sign, so it'll bring some star status to individuals with Capricorn. Um, Also, career-wise, there should be some notice of them, mainly because the Saturn moon actually offsets the Saturn at K2 in the 10th house. Plus, that cluster of planets in the 10th house helps them out a lot. Jupiter in the third house, very diplomatic, as I've said for months, recanting, taking back, but still kind of diplomatic. Rahu's in the fourth. I think that's good for renovating home renovations and things like that. Not so good um, for peace of mind at the home. Mars is in the sixth house, so watch out for accidents. The sign should watch out for accidents. And let's go to it. And again, good for career. We've already said that. Aquarius has Jupiter in the second house, which is good for financial gains. Saturn kind of blocks that. But also, this combination kind of takes away enemies from the sign. So that's not all that bad. So this is similar to what happened, what we did with Leo before. Um, it takes uh, it takes the sixth house lord and the 12th house lord and puts them together. So you'll have a loss of enemies. Rahu is in the third. Uh, Good ambition. Mars is in the fifth, so some problems or arguments with children, but not where they won't last very long. And we have a lot of planets in the ninth, so this sign will be looking to learn lessons, looking to expand knowledge, looking to acquire more knowledge about different things, especially the arts, and especially about astrology, and especially about um, sciences in general. Okay, so this is not only metaphysically connected. I think you'll actually see some scientific breakthroughs over the next 6 months or so. And so, not a bad week for um, Aquarius, just so long as it stays out of Pisces or is careful traveling. For finally, we get to um, our friend Pisces. Pisces has Jupiter in the first house. That's a good combination. It's aspected by Saturn. Saturn does hurt Jupiter. Jupiter helps Saturn. So essentially, there's some optimism here, but Mars in the fourth house, some fights with spouse, Um, Spouse will have a lot of money or a lot of need for control for this sign. And finally, career life should be the focus of this chart, of this sign over the next week. So this isn't a bad chart, it's just a little challenging. Now let's look to the map and see what's happening around the world. Let's see if I can expand it a little bit so you guys can see it a little better. Oh boy, I hate it when it does this. Let me go back to gosh. All right, so we have um I'm using our plans on this one, but I won't necessarily. So we have a Saturn line really not intersecting with everything in the far left hand side of the chart. We do have a Rahu line coming down next to a Uranus line, which is one of the reasons why I think Uranus is a little bit redundant. We have a Mars line and um, coming down over, and a Jupiter line coming down over Western Canada, which should be a little difficult for those folks. There should be, I don't know, earthquake activity is inaccurate, but some violence in that part of the world. Um, the Jupiter line sits close to the west coast of the United States, um, and I'm thinking this will affect the elections, but we'll look at that more next week. Um, the and we'll talk a little bit more about the eclipse next week, the lunar eclipse. Those I tend not to view as, um, but we will have some confusion over the elections. That's so. What else is new? Next week we have a moon line going over the middle of the United States. That indicates a lot of pessimism, a lot of underhanded behavior happening in between Texas and Kansas up here and all the way into Canada. And when I say underhanded behavior, a lot of secret stuff going on, a lot of hidden dealings going on. Um, we have a Mercury line going up through um, the Midwest, through Louisiana, through Tennessee, through Ohio. So expect to Michigan, excuse me. So expect to see a lot of news coming out of this part of the country, and also out of America, I'm sorry, Mexico, which is still in North America last time I checked, and also out of Nicaragua and uh, Panama. Um, the other line that I pay close attention to is the Saturn line. The Saturn line is going up through Pennsylvania and New York. So there are going to be some surprises in Pennsylvania and New York in some of the races uh, in the United States. Also, some bad economic news, I think, in that part of the world. Um, the other line I want to pay attention to is this Venus line going close to Washington and going close to Nova Scotia and New England and the entire East Coast and Cuba, going through Cuba. And the Saturn line is also going through Cuba. So I wouldn't be surprised to see changes in government in Cuba or changes in government in South America, especially in Chile, Ecuador, not necessarily Chile, but Ecuador and Peru. So I know the government's just changed recently there. I'm hoping we won't see an overthrow of the governments, but um, that's a possibility. The other lines where we can expect to see some violence, and I know there's an election that just occurred in Brazil. I think it just occurred in Brazil. I haven't looked at the results yet, but again, um, definitely some controversy over the election, um, especially in um, in the middle part of the country, and also towards down by Rio and Sao Paulo, excuse me. Um, the other thing is we have a Mars line running through Scotland, Ireland is definitely going to affect England. Uh, some lies and campaigns definitely in Ireland, Portugal, Western um, Africa, especially around Morocco and down into uh, down over the tip here. And I'm going to have to get more familiar with the country. I think that's the Ivory Coast down there. And Sun Venus lines are moving through um, England. So there was recently a prime minister elected. There'll be some scandals or some inability to correct problems. Hello? Yeah, I'll be up in about 10 minutes. No, they're fed. They're fed. Yeah, about an hour and a half ago. Yes. Okay, I'll be up for you in a few minutes. Bye. All right. All right, so I did have an interruption. But it's sort of it's sort of become part and parcel. I will edit those out later as we go on. But I want to make my way through the map really quickly. We're gonna have um, oh my goodness, some political scandals in Norway, France, Germany, all the way through um, Libya down into Niger, and it's even touching um, Angola and what was in it's Zimbabwe now. I apologize. Oh gosh, Zimbabwe and I was going to say Rhodesia. Oh my God, that's horrible. And wow, yeah. So there's going to be kind of a mess in this part of the world right here, in terms of political scandals, and especially around Italy. Um, there was a new prime minister recently elected in Italy, a very conservative prime minister, and I won't be at all surprised to see something germinating around her. And a lot of this dispute will continue really through South through Eastern Europe, touching even Finland and Denmark, and all and Poland. Um, the other part is we have Saturn going up through Turkey. Now, Turkey's in an earthquake zone. It's easy to say we could see some bad activity in the Turkish economy and in the Aegean Sea over here. But it looks likely with this combination. I don't see a Mars close to it, but we do have Saturn, so it'll probably be economic much more so than earthquakes. But I never rule that possibly out, and especially with the eclipse coming next week. So we'll look at that more carefully. I don't want to panic people over there. There's also going to be a lot of we know a lot of starvation in Ukraine and even in Russia. Jupiter and is going up over close to Moscow, so you may see some moderation coming from Moscow. I wouldn't bet on it, but that's one of the things that Jupiter does. But Jupiter can also make a population kind of dogmatic. Um, India is going through some changes in its governmental status, some changes in its economy. Some of these are positive, uh, but especially in the Western in the eastern part of India. I see a lot of activity. We're going to be hearing a lot of news from eastern India. Saturn, China is essentially in kind of a mess. So are Pakistan and Afghanistan, as we know from the news, flooding problems, big flooding problems in Pakistan. But Saturn, oh my gosh, Saturn passing through these regions of China. These regions of China are going to be hit very badly, and there'll even be violence, I think, in eastern China. Um, I'm hoping Taiwan is not invaded, but over the next 3 months, I would keep a close look on that island. It doesn't look imminent, um, and there'll be some political violence in eastern Australia, excuse me. And Jupiter, Japan looks largely unscathed right now, but they are a little bit um, underfunded right now. But these lines right here, passing through and hitting in Indonesia. Indonesia looks like it's in a heck of a crisis right now. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that, and, and and again, keep in mind this is not playing into any political narrative from either the right or the left. Um, the world economy is shaky right now. It'll be shaky for the next year and a half. Um, I'm not of the same opinion that we're going to hit a major economic collapse that some astrologers are. But there will be there will be a recession. I would say a relatively short-lived recession coming up because this is a lot of the economic dynamics are very similar to the 70s when we had these what I would call trying to draw a map like these ups and downs in the economy. So while you're in them, they feel horrible, they feel endless. Um, but 2008 was unique in that it was a long, prolonged period of time. 1980 was unique in that it was a 3 year run. We're not going to see something like that again. So, at least not for a while. So just be patient. This is not Berlin style inflation. At number one, if the war ends. Number two, um, if there's some moderation in oil or things like that, you'll see a relatively rapid recovery. If not, uh, and I'll talk more about that in subsequent months, you'll see um, a continuing crisis. But I like to think we're more sane than that. And um, I've lately I've been proven more correct than incorrect about that. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like, share. Thank you very much. Namaste, and I love you all. And I'll be more in time next week. Bye bye, everyone.